an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Season 1, Episode 8, My Mom, Greg's Mom, and Josh's Sweet Dance Moves. In this episode, Rebecca's mother comes for a visit for Hanukkah, and she's a whole lot. She's a great deal. She is much too much. And also, Greg has some issues, and he really needs to get into therapy. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha. Many thanks to Emery for commissioning this episode. Emery has commissioned a couple of the Crazy Ex-Girlfriend episodes, so yeah, a thumbs up, appreciate it. I was actually just thinking the other day, I wonder when the next one is. So this episode has probably one of the best songs so far. The song that Rebecca's mother sings when she comes to visit is brilliant. I want to preface this by saying my mother isn't terrible when it comes to criticism. She is much less intense with it than a lot of moms that I have met. Never mind that I know about, but that I have personally met. And yet, nevertheless, I am not unfamiliar with the feeling that everything you say and do is not enough. It was there's like one anecdote that I always mention because it was so exactly what I predicted. I was going to be hosting my mother when she came to visit in Philadelphia. And I spent 3 straight days cleaning the house from top to bottom. That kind of thing where you're like pulling out furniture and getting behind it, scrubbing baseboards, getting up like on the like ceiling fans with dusters. Everything that you put off for far too long, I did. And the regular cleaning to make it feel at least, at minimum, acceptable, right? And as I was leaving the house, I noticed that there was a mirror right by the front door that hung over a little entry table that we put our keys on that I had forgotten to Windex, and it was smudged. And I hadn't seen it because I'd been cleaning mostly at night after work, and it was the day when I was going to pick her up. But I was already running late, and I just really couldn't stop and do it. But as I left, I was like, she's going to say something about that fucking mirror. I know it. And sure enough, she comes in. It's the first time she's ever been at the house. She was very like, oh, this is really nice. Wow, la, la, la. We sit down to eat. You really need to clean that mirror off. And I was just like, and I said something like, I fucking knew you were going to say that. I just couldn't help it. I just blurted it out. I was like, I cleaned the entire house. And as I was leaving, I saw that I missed that mirror and I knew you were going to say something. And she looked really startled and was like, I'm not that bad, am I? And I just looked at her like, I don't know what to tell you, lady, because I predicted this and it's what happened. So let yourself be the judge. And she seemed to sort of restrain herself after that. But it's clear with like somebody that is Rebecca's mother's type, it's not that easy. You know, I pointed out to my mom and she sort of realizes and catches herself. You pointed out to Rebecca's mom and she immediately lashes back with something like, oh, excuse me for just wanting you to not live in squalor, you know, that kind of thing. And it's really tough to deal with a person who can weaponize situations that way. And it's really like this sort of thing really throws into sharp relief how different people's expectations for their children are and what their standards for success are. Like, I'm not making a lot of money, but I'm doing fine now. And I am running my own business. And as far as my mom is concerned, that's success. She feels like, good, you're all set. You know, I've met somebody that I really care about, that I'm living with, who can help support me if something goes wrong. She's good. But Rebecca's mother, it's like, unless she does the exact things unless Rebecca does the exact things that her mother has pre-approved on the list of life accomplishments that she clearly keeps at the ready in her mind at any given moment, whatever it is that Rebecca does not seem to count. And it's really like amazing to see this woman walk into Rebecca's huge apartment and see that she is an admired person and simply not feel that this is success at all. You know, she has such a very particular list of what it looks like to have made it. And when somebody has that sort of list, and it's all really based on what she wishes she could have accomplished for herself. She says at another point, I gave up on law school to raise you. So clearly, Rebecca is doing what she wants to do herself. And she feels resentful that her daughter is not taking full advantage of the opportunities she has when her mother feels, I gave up my chance to do this so that you could do this, and now you're just not. And you're wasting everything that I sacrificed. And man, is that an impossible and selfish place to put your children. It's one of those things that, like, I can't help but wonder how many parents do this and aren't even aware that they are. But it is a really tough thing to see parents attempting to live out their own lives through their children. And Rebecca is desperate to get the approval of this woman, which is what happens, right? She's having a similar sort of reaction to her mother that people have in response to somebody like Regina George, where the very fact that they cannot get her approval, or if they do, it's a fleeting, tiny little taste, that is exactly what makes them want it so much. And I really fucking get it in that regard. Like, I have said before that don't get me wrong, I love compliments. I mean, who doesn't? But there are certain people from whom a compliment means a lot more. And it's almost always people who don't compliment often. If they don't really do it, you know, a excellent job, you did fantastically well, from a Professor Flitwick versus a Professor McGonagall versus a Snape. You know, like, come on. There's just, you have to put more weight on the thing that's rarer, right? You just do. So we see, this starts off with this amazing little bit of Rebecca and her mother on a ship headed for the United States, speaking German, huddled up in shawls, and generally talking over what their new life is going to look like. And she has the ring on her finger, her mother does. And it really is very beautiful. It's like this sort of moonstone, I think. And it's like a cat's eye shape set in what looks like a sterling silver band. It's beautiful. And it is the Garfinkel ring. And this is sort of a mythological item at this point in Rebecca's life, that every woman in her family, it's been handed down when they have turned 18. And when she turned 18, she didn't get it. And feels that eventually, when she gets to whatever like arbitrary line of success that her mother has drawn in the sand, she will get that ring, and it will be a symbol that her mother finally approves of her, that this is the thing that seals the deal and means that her mother loves her. And I don't like have anything like this in my life. I don't know if any of you have something like this that really feels like truly significant that you are going to inherit, and that this is like handed down and meaningful in your family. There's nothing really like this in my family that is traditionally handed down that I can think of. I inherited a couple of things from my grandmother, but those were not something that there was any sort of ritual about. I just inherited them. And I wonder if this is common or not. I'm just kind of curious about it, because I know that it depends on what your background is, what your nationality, maybe your race, that could probably play into it. But also I would imagine familial wealth plays into it as well, right? Because sometimes your family just doesn't have anything that's really very valuable to pass down. The things that I inherited are not valuable. There's a set of beautiful glass, like cut glass, and a like cameo brooch. That's it. And I am almost positive neither of them is really worth anything. This ring, I don't know if it's, moonstone and sterling silver are not inherently valuable, but perhaps whomever made it, or however old it is, condition it's in, whatever. But yeah, this is something that is essentially like kind of a legendary thing now in Rebecca's mind. And whenever you get fixated on a thing in the manner in which Rebecca is fixated on this, you're destined to kind of back yourself into a corner, right? And sort of wind up feeling like you didn't, I don't even want to say like, what I feel is by the time you get it, you're not going to really feel like the significance of it that you thought you would, when in your imagination you imagined what it would be like to get this thing. Now, that may not be true. It may mean just as much as you felt it would mean, because we decide how much things mean to us a lot of the time. But I could definitely see if situations had gone differently, if Rebecca had inherited this from her mother simply because she fulfilled her mother's to-do list and her mother decided to give it to her, I could see that actually being unsatisfying for her. The way that she winds up getting it is, thank God, valid and means something. It's a true marker and milestone in terms of her behavior towards her mother. So that, thank God, lends it another kind of significance. But I just really think that if her mother had given it to her as a Hanukkah present because Rebecca had successfully faked her life, it wouldn't really have meant the same, So we go to Rebecca talking to Paula about the fact that her mother is coming. Rebecca is wearing pantyhose, and Paula notices and is kind of like, what? Why are you? And I find this so funny because it's clearly a generational thing. Pantyhose are just really not a thing for most of us, even in office settings anymore. And that's not to say nobody wears them, but it's not a total requirement the way that it used to be. Thank God. And I don't know, like, how many of you have read, for example, the ones that I'm reading, or that I just finished, the Sue Grafton novels, the Alphabet Mysteries. Those are all set in the 80s, and there's a kind of shorthand happening there where she can tell you that a character is dressed kind of slutty or is kind of slutty by just saying she wore a short skirt and no pantyhose. And that's like it just says everything that she just says that. So apparently her mother is still, functioning under that sort of mindset. But then she does get gifted pantyhose by some dude in her office. So, you know, maybe it is more of a thing. I don't know. But yeah, so she tries to tell Paula to not mention that Josh Chan has moved here, or that she moved here for him, or act a certain way like this or that. And Paula's like, I'm not going to just magically change to please your mother. And she's like, I'm not asking you to do that. But then later on, literally does ask her to do that. So yeah, that's, you know, that's going to happen. I have to say, I know I've said it so many times about Paula's workspace being really pink and how much it looks exactly like so much of my workspace. Hello, hello. But also in this scene, she's wearing this like magenta cardigan and her nails are painted a matching color. And I am here for all of it. And I just love that Paula, while going through some shit in her life, still brings it with her style and has like a real corner of this office that is just exploding with pink. It makes me very happy. And Paula at this point accuses Rebecca of being a mom pleaser. And Rebecca of course denies this, but then we get a flashback of her having made her mother breakfast, poached eggs. Like she's, you know, what, 12 years old in this scene, out here poaching eggs. Like how many of you learned how to poach eggs before the age of 25? Most of us did not. And she's out here doing this for her mother, who simply responds with, I'm 3 pounds over. We're not eating eggs. And her going, what do you mean? You look great. My principal says that you were the prettiest and youngest mom in my whole grade. And her mom looks at her and says, just grade? And no, the whole school. I hear that his wife is frigid too. And that maybe, and her mother, like, obviously is not picking up on the fact that her daughter is just saying whatever and feeds into this terrible habit. And Rebecca tries to then come back to this conversation and be like, well, okay, yeah, I used to be a mom pleaser, but I definitely don't anymore. And Paula is just like, okay, sweetie, whatever. Yeah. So we go from there to her finally coming in the door. Rebecca has done away with all of the Christmas decorations, put up a bunch of Hanukkah stuff, put out a menorah, and put out her mother's photo in a frame. Okay. Goes and answers the door, and then we get this song. You guys, it is just so good. So I'm just going to read all of these lyrics, and I hope that you guys can bear with me on this, but it deserves it, so I'm not sorry. Immediately starts, where's the bathroom? Where's the bathroom? Where's the bathroom? Where's the bathroom? I need to use the bathroom. Tell me that you have a bathroom. Is this in this hovel you call home? I don't know which was bumpier, the plane ride or the taxi. All these freeways are a nightmare. Where's my purse? I need my comb. By the way, you're looking healthy. And by healthy, I mean chunky. I don't mean that as an insult. I'm just stating it as fact. I see your eczema is back. Are you using the lotion that I sent you? If you're not using it, I'm going to return it to the store. God, I give you everything, and all you want is more. And Rebecca, meanwhile, is looking super drained as this is all happening. She's like poking and prodding her, handing her things, taking things away, putting things down, picking them up again, moving at the like speed of light. Where's the bathroom? Where's the bathroom? And you haven't told me where your bathroom is. And Rebecca says it's upstairs. Okay, fine. I need the walk. Guys, these are the kinds of comments that it's impossible to say anything back to because it's so passive aggressive that you're just like, they're acting like they're not trying to start a fight. So if you say something, you're the one starting a fight, even though you're clearly not the one. They're the one. But they know how to play it so that you feel weird about it. Well, your house is ... charming, though some florals wouldn't kill you. Do you ever get a maid here? It's so nice to sit and talk. Since when do you have a vendetta against vases? When did you stop wearing makeup? Are you sure that you're not gay? I'd still love you if you were gay. It would explain this vase vendetta. Please just tell me if you're gay. And Rebecca screams, I'm not gay. And she says, don't interrupt me. You're always with the talking. I just got off a plane, and give me a moment to catch my breath. I need to use the bathroom. It's the least that you can do. You still have not told me, since you lived inside me for 9 months, where your bathroom is. And she says, like I said, it's upstairs. And she stops and goes, oh, right. Thank you. And she heads upstairs. There's this little break while Rebecca literally lays flat on her back, kind of close to hyperventilating. It kind of feels like, and then the song continues. You call that a bathroom? That's what passes for a bathroom? There were no bowls of rocks or any decorative soaps. You don't even have a bath mat. Who doesn't have a bath mat? If you need a bath mat, I can hear. Oh, did you hear? A bishop in Wisconsin said something anti-Semitic, so the temple has decided to boycott cheddar cheese. Everyone asks how you're doing. How is widow Becky? Is she still a big shot lawyer? And to that I just say, please. You won't get a husband this way. She pulls out a string of condoms from the nightstand, to which Rebecca is like, holy shit, because she's just going through her stuff, right? So yeah, you won't get a husband this way. At least you have your career. Oh, wait, you threw your career to chase this California dream. I wasted all that dough on Harvard and Yale for you to be living in a dump in nowhere, USA, getting fatter by the minute on this greasy, goyish food. Just put my luggage in my room. Could I get a glass of water? I'll be back in a moment. I need to use the bathroom. Again. And then just leaves. Guys, it is a thing of beauty. I imagine this was a really easy song to write. Not in that the song is simple or anything like that, but it's all so very familiar. And a lot of this is not criticisms that I had from my mother. A lot of those are criticisms that I had from my first fiance's mother. His family was from Cuba, and she was very similar in her expectations of what a home was like. The bowl of rocks or decorative soaps, especially that kind of little thing. It's just the fact that we didn't do that. It felt to her like you were being lazy or something. There's just so much about the whole thing it's just so good and so fast paced. The adrenaline of it, the whole way that she's running to and fro, pawing at Rebecca, pawing through her stuff. It's so, so well done. I just thought this was genius. So the song's over and we go to her and she's just unpacking her bag and talking about how hot in California it is. And, it's Christmas time. And she's feeling like it should be a lot more of a traditional, there should be a nip in the air. And then tells Rebecca about her frenemy, as she calls her, Audra Levine, who got a country house upstate. She knows how to do winter. And Rebecca tries to be like, I think you're actually going to like it here if you just give it a second. And she says, I don't understand why you moved here. Do you have a good reason? And of course, Rebecca does not want to tell her that it was all about Josh Chan, because who would? Because honestly, it's not a good look. Let's be honest. That's why Rebecca doesn't even want to move it to, or doesn't even want to admit to herself that's why she moved. That's how bad a look it is, that she's in denial still after months. So she tells her mom, it's really not nice for you to just blow in here with a bunch of criticisms. And her mom doesn't even apologize. She just says, okay, I'm exhausted. And is apparently already ready for bed, even though it's still very light outside. And took a sleeping pill and has a sleep mask and everything. and tells Rebecca in this moment, just for once, put yourself in my shoes. To which Rebecca clearly, like, she just sighs, but that's what she's done her whole life. And there is nothing like a person who is your priority telling you they don't feel like a priority to make you feel like you just want to give up. You know, like, just what the fuck more do you want me to do? Jesus fuck. And I just think this was so tiring, y'all. It was so tiring. Oh, I hated it. So we go to Greg, and he is apparently at some weird kiosk in the mall when Rebecca's neighbor walks up. Now help me out. Heather? What's her name? I feel like it's Heather, but I can't remember if that's right. Oh, Megan says yes. I'm so pleased. She walks up and asks what he's doing, and he says he's trying to find a present for some kids who are either 6 or maybe they're 15. Which, guys, how many of you have either, like, cousins or you have brothers and sisters who have had children and you lose track of how old these kids are? I am friends with my nephew on Facebook. This motherfucker showed up dressed in a tux ready for prom. 6'2" on my timeline. He had the audacity. This motherfucker is 10 years old. I could tell you with no hesitation that he's like 10 years old. He's about to start college. Like, I am so fucking far off, but this is what happens. It's weird too, right? Because you remember when you were a kid, people being like, you've gotten so big. Oh my God, I can't believe it. I remember when you were this big. I used to see you and you were tiny enough to fit in this and that. And you would do this. And you were just like, yeah, I grew, dumbass. That's what kids do. What the fuck is wrong with you? And you're just like totally unimpressed by this person being flabbergasted that you grew. Because that's what you do. Who cares? But once I got older, I started to understand why people were reacting that way. Because when you get older, time is different. It changes because of your whole perspective. And any time that I saw my little cousins or my nieces or nephews, I would almost fall over. Because I was just so unprepared. I had an idea in my head of what they looked like. And I anticipated seeing them again. And that they would look the same. And that was not how it was, because that's not how nature works. But yeah, so his moment here, it's really funny. And Heather says, wow, you are a terrible father. And he's like, oh, wait, I know you, huh? I met you at her party, Rebecca's party. And she's like, oh yeah, you got drunk and then slow danced with that giant fish. And he clearly doesn't really remember that. And she's like, yeah, I've got pictures of that. So, and he holds up some like wiffle bat with balls and says, does this present say our mom sucks, but I'm going to try very hard not to hold it against you? She says, no, it says you're old and still think that kids play outside. And when she asks if he's getting a present for his mom, he says, no, my gift is my presence at her shitty, overly lavish holiday dinner. And Heather does this weird thing that feels out of character for her, but clearly the show needed it to happen, so I'm going to let it slide. And basically invites herself to the dinner. She's like, can you bring somebody? And he looks at her for a second like, that's weird. And then he's like, no, you know what? This is good. Then you get to witness the madness. I need somebody there to see it. And of course, I have an idea in my head of what it's going to look like when we get to this party. And spoiler alert, it ain't that. I'm just going to talk about all of Greg's shit right here. And what it is that he has baggage that he has not dealt with and has not had a couple of important conversations with his mom. And so he has this resentment that is turning into a bizarre paranoia about everything she says, reading into things the wrong way, taking things the wrong way, and feeling like because he thinks he knows how things went down between her and his dad, feeling like her inviting him to the holidays is her trying to like make up for being a shitty parent who abandoned him. But when we are there and the door opens, because I'm expecting this to be this big, like extravagant house, I expect her to be somebody who's like kind of vain and unaware that the house is going to look like something, you know, in the second Addams Family movie, that ridiculous like white marble mansion that she winds up buying. I thought it was going to be something like that with like ice sculptures at the huge buffet and all of this stuff. No. It's literally him, his mom, her husband, and their 2 kids. Those are the only people in the room. The way he made it sound makes it seem like it's going to be this catered gala. And instead, it's just the most ordinary fucking, like, you know? And so she's watching him react, Heather is, and it's just kind of like, dude, what are you doing? Meanwhile, she's really enjoying everything. The food is good. The drinks are delicious. The people are funny. And he is missing it because he is just so determined to be angry and misinterpret everything. He calls her by her first name rather than mom. And when she like hands these cocktails to them, and they are, you know, they're virgin cocktails that were made by the stepbrother and sister, that they looked on YouTube to find a recipe for. They did they went extra to be nice because they think it's really interesting that he works at a bar, and he takes that comment as romanticizing the working poor. Tell us what it's like to be poor. Which, let me tell you guys, if you have never been in that situation, it's unmistakable. And this is 100% not it. I have been invited to and I still think about it sometimes because this person, they did not realize what they were doing, was so uncomfortable for me. But it was a girl who invited me to a party with a lot of her girlfriends, and they were all in graduate programs and working jobs that were directly related to their major and doing things that were extremely like planned out. And they all clearly came from upper middle class families. And I was the only person there who was not in school, who had not finished my bachelor's degree even, was working for myself, and did not come from money. And she kind of put me on the spot a few times and wanted me to talk about what I did and how I was like my history and stuff in a way that felt very like, tell us what it's like to be poor. It really did. And I know she didn't mean it to be offensive in that way. And I didn't even really myself put my finger on why I felt so strange about it until later on. But that happens. And this is so not what that looks like. She tries to say there's nothing wrong with working at a bar, though if you didn't want to and wanted to go back to school, Stu and I would be happy to contribute. And this is really interesting because Greg, we didn't know this. We thought that he only had a choice between taking care of his father or going back to school. And he chose to take care of his father, which is admirable and selfless, but it sucks. But now we get another angle, which is that he could take help, and he chooses not to. And he says, I'm not taking any money from you guys. I'm not a freeloader like Mason and Lily. The two of whom, sitting by the fire, look up at him like, dude, what the fuck? And his mother says, that's not what I meant. Mason and Lily are children. Like, Greg is acting like a straight up psychopath. He looks at them and goes, are they? what do you mean, Greg? Do you think that they are body snatchers? Like, what the fuck? He's just being such a fucking... And I love, throughout these scenes, Heather looking at him and just kind of pursing her lips like, okay, dude. I guess. I just really like, what are you doing, Greg? Seriously. So yeah, this is sort of... I don't know how many of you watched the 5th season of Community, but there is a subplot in there where it turns out that Britta is basically broke because she is bartending and has to accept a lot of help from her friends. And it turns out that a bunch of the help that they are giving her, they actually got from the parents that she refuses to accept help from. So they keep on being able to like come in and lend her money or give her a place to stay in a clinch. And she keeps being really grateful that they're helping. But once she finds out it's coming from her parents, whom she has like a similar issue with as Greg does, she misunderstands the way they are about a lot of things and has a bad relationship that shouldn't be so terrible. But she's fine with accepting help from friends. It's the parents that she doesn't want to accept. And she tries to act like it's because she's so independent. Meanwhile, she'll take money from her roommates, no problem. And I'm not trying to say that Greg is doing that where he's accepting help from other people really easily. It's just, obviously, he has options that he's pretending he doesn't have. And we were looking at the situation, you know, a couple episodes ago with a lot of sympathy because we didn't realize that he was just being really pig-headed. I understand if somebody really hurt you, like if somebody was abusive or whatever, and you feel like you just don't want to take things from them, then that is understandable to me. And that's obviously how Greg sees this right now. But once we get the full story, it's just really a whole other, like, situation. So I'm going to jump ahead again because we have the moment where Heather tells him calling her Shauna is creeping me out. Why don't you just call her mom? And he's like, I really can't believe that you're taking her side. The whole reason that I brought you here is because I wanted you to be a witness to the madness. And she says, well, the reason I'm here is because I thought you were cute and they were going to be terrible, but you're terrible and they're cute. And his mom comes up and asks who wants a refill on the eggnog. And he backs up and just says, what is that supposed to mean? I really, really like that this show did this. That they have Rebecca, who's trying desperately to please a parent who is really toxic and terrible. But then we get the other side of it, where what if your son or daughter is toxic? What if that's the thing and you're trying your fucking best and nothing you do ever seems right? You know, it's a really interesting, like, juxtaposition here. So Heather jumps in and is like, you're doing it. Stop it. What are you talking about? And she says that he didn't have his nap today, so he's acting up. And somebody smells something burning. And his mom says, oh, I think I left the cookies in the oven. And this is when he just makes the biggest reach ever. It says, oh, you left something? Shocker. And she says, what does that mean? And he looks like he's going to just stare her down and not answer. But thankfully, Heather is here to completely ruin that fucking facade and just says, oh, nothing. He's just never gotten over you leaving him. Anyways, I know it's early, but can I make a to-go plate? Guys, I love her a lot in this scene. It's just everything I needed. So, in the end, she explains, Shauna does, that I didn't just like walk out on you in the middle of the night. You're acting like I simply abandoned you. I did what I thought was best. Your father and I weren't happy anymore. And you needed to be with a parent. I wanted you to come with me, but he insisted on keeping you with him. And he didn't want to leave West Covina. You wanted to stay in West Covina too. So, and he's like, well, you wanted me to just leave Dad and when you did? And she's just kind of gives him this look, and it's just like, you want things black and white. I made a mistake, but it wasn't leaving your father. We were both unhappy. My mistake was that I should have insisted on shared custody. I didn't want to force it. I didn't want you to hate me, but obviously that didn't work. And he has the grace to kind of look ashamed of himself. And, you know, this is the kind of thing that I think a lot of people, when things like this go down, I always expect people to understand more what their parents are dealing with, because I am such, at times, an overly empathetic person, maybe borderline codependent, especially regarding my parents, that I do nothing but see things from their perspective and give them passes on behavior that maybe I shouldn't, honestly. But I knew so deeply that my parents should not be together, that if they had actually divorced while I was a kid, I would have known precisely how they were both dealing with it, even if they didn't tell me, because I could tell. I was good at reading them. And I would have had the understanding about what they were thinking and why they made the choices that they did from a child, because I had that sort of relationship with my mother, especially, where she could tell me that stuff and I would be able to intuit from my father how he felt. Obviously, Greg wasn't that kind of kid. And I really have to keep in mind how different everyone is, and how for some children, their relationship to their parents and their perception of the world is just different. I was so tuned in that it made me overly self-reliant at times and made me the caretaker of my parents at times. And clearly Greg was not in that position. Now he is taking care of his father, but this is how it's sort of supposed to be. Once your parents begin to decline, you're old enough to be able to help, allegedly. And he obviously should have had this fucking conversation with his mother a lot sooner. He's how old? You know, I think he looks like he's about 35 here. How often has he been coming for Christmas and he's been acting like this all these years and they never had this talk? Like, they should. It's understandable with Rebecca why her and her mother haven't, because they like clearly live far apart and she just avoids her mom as much as she can. And they only have each other. So to a point, she doesn't want to ruin things, but he's like living in the same town as his mom, or maybe this is out of town, but nevertheless, she's like much more close by. And you'd have thought that they would have had some kind of blow up because of the way he's been acting sooner than this. But yeah, it's like he sort of looks sad once he realizes that everything that she's been doing and saying has been sincere. And he's just been completely, unrepentingly awful the entire time. And Heather says, you know, I usually don't say this to people because it's a bit too on the nose for me, but you need to get over yourself and grow up. And now, because I'm hungry. And he says, wait, you're the only person here not involved in this situation and you think I'm out of line? And from the other side of the room, Mason yells, yeah, because she's cool and you're a dick. And Greg starts to get defensive and then is like, no, that was warranted. Good call, Mason. And he apologizes to his mom and is just kind of like, yeah, I just needed, I had this wrong and I had it fucked up. And he calls her mom and they don't hug or anything, but they just kind of look at each other like, okay, we took a step and this is clearly important. And later on, he's out there hanging out with Heather in the street, like when she's about to go back to work at the mall. And he's like bummed because he wants to keep hanging out with her. And she just takes the little elf ears that she has on off and yells, I quit, at the air. And he's like, oh, awesome. Okay. And he goes to high-five her, and she just says, weak, and grabs him and kisses him. And you know what? I liked it. I thought that was pretty funny, to be honest. Yeah, the high-five, the look that she gives him, and then kisses him, and he's just like, oh, okay. And I'm just like, yeah, all right. Like, I don't really want him with Rebecca, honestly. I've said this before. So I was actually pleased to see that they're directing him towards somebody else. And it may be that he and Rebecca, like, wind up together later. But I like at least that he's not just fucking twiddling his thumbs sitting around waiting, you know? Which would feel really awkward. So, okay, let's go back and talk about Rebecca and what happened. Because she brings her mother to the office. And it's a series of embarrassing moments. It's like one thing after another. First of all, the actual office itself, just, you know, right away from the outside, does not look impressive. It's like kind of, I don't want to say it's in a strip mall because it's not, but it has like sort of that feel to it in a way. And she tells her mom, yes, those are Christmas decorations. Her mom asks, where's the menorah? And she says, no, there isn't a menorah, Mom. And then they get approached by Pastor Steve Newland, whose name I can't remember in this show, but it doesn't matter because he's Steve Newland. And he tells her, I settled the big parking lot case. All the plaintiffs are getting $4 if they can find their parking receipts. Meanwhile, her mother is behind her looking like she wants to sink into the ground. Like, this is so upsetting. Then this guy says he got her some pantyhose for Secret Santa. And then she runs into her boss, who is really angry that nobody is wearing a Christmas sweater because it is National Christmas Sweater Day. And all of this leads to her mother calling these people losers. And this kind of triggers a series of memories that of her mother calling her father a loser, her friends losers, and eventually her a loser. And she says, oh my God, you thought that I worked here? You think that I'm a lawyer here? And tells her mother that she's volunteering with underprivileged lawyers. Guys, I just love this so much. What a weird fucking, I just like, there's no words for how fucking bananas this is. Her mother buys it unwillingly in a way because she's just like, well, that doesn't really make sense, but also is overeager in the other way because she's just like, I don't want you to be here, so of course I want to believe this. So she tells her mother that she's just here to, you know, give everybody a bit of a pep talk and tell them all that they can accomplish their dreams. I believe in you. Generally treating them like she's just a cheerleader, which is apparently exactly what her boss wants, because he looks around and says, that was good, even though she has turned around and left work for the day. And she tells her mother that she is actually working at a firm that's way downtown, and all of those lawyers are Jewish, and they are all in Israel for Hanukkah, and they invited her, but she declined because she wanted to be here for her. And then immediately runs inside, tells Paula to pretend to be some high-powered fancy friend and meet them for lunch. And this turns into an amazing bit where Paula shows up as a British woman in like a tweed jacket and brooch with the glasses and her hair done up, and hates California, talks about it being like a cultural wasteland. The way they do holidays here, I mean, it's completely arse about face. And it is tough to drink hot toddies when you're schwitzing. And then mentions that she's Jewish. And I could not get over this because Rebecca is so irritated by the way that Paula is playing this. And I'm just like, why? You are asking for her to be somebody else. Well, guess what, sister? Not only has she done that, but she did it real, real well because your mother is eating this up. Look at the way she's reacting. The whole thing. And honestly, people putting on a British accent is often very uncomfortable. Like, it's just really... A lot of people think a British accent is just like, oh, hello, mommy. And it's like, they do the really sort of affected upper class. Like, there's a tone that they take that is really not British exactly. It's just sort of their idea of snobby. I felt like Paula pulled off a British accent fairly well, to be honest. So, yeah, this was fun. And I thought that Rebecca needed to be a little bit more grateful to her friend, who is like literally being asked to put on a show and decided to go for it 100%. Rebecca, you really need to look at everything that she just did for you. Your mother loves her. It could not have gone better, to be honest. You're just uncomfortable because you like to be the one lying to your mother. You know, that really is what it comes down to. So then we go to the exchanging of gifts. She gives her mother a crystal like ring holder that her mother keeps calling an anal thermometer and clearly hates. And her mother gives her a vase, which Rebecca clearly does not care about. And Rebecca sees that her mother has the box with the Garfinkel ring in it in her purse and knows that this means her mother's considering giving it to her and thinks that this is the moment, and her mother tells her that she's going to wait. So again, Rebecca feels like she's just missed her chance because of whatever, maybe giving her a bad gift, right? That's probably what she thinks at this point. And it sort of feels that way. Well, then they get a call from Calvin, and her mother sees his photo pop up when he calls and says, well, he's easy on the eyes. Who's that? And I'm just like, everybody has to stop acting like Calvin is attractive. I'm sorry, but just stop it. It's just not working for me at all. She asks about, like, you know, what, like him calling at this time of night. Isn't he married? Actually, he's a recent widower, but I told him no. So let's get back to you and me. And her mother's like, no, we should go and see him. And you should definitely bring me. And I will definitely not throw myself at him in an embarrassing way all night long. And what winds up happening is her mother gets a little too drunk too quick, is being really weird and flirty. I do need to mention that her mother's arms are amazing, and I'm very jealous of them. And eventually he gets up and is talking to Rebecca, and it's just kind of like, what's going on here? And then he realizes like that she's a parent pleaser. And he kind of gets that, like he's taking a phone call when Rebecca comes up to him and tells him, you need to sleep with my mom. And he starts laughing and then realizes she's serious. And he's like, absolutely not. What? And when he says, oh, I understand, I'm also a parent pleaser, she thinks it's him saying, okay, I'll do it. But he's like, no, and he leaves, and she has to go and explain to her mother that she is more concerned with the potential effect of this on a client, and that she had to put her foot down and say no. And it is a really awkward moment because her mother is so angry at Rebecca for this call. And I just really wanted her to at least be consistent and understand that, like, if she wants her daughter's career to succeed, that maybe she should take her word on the fact that this could be a potential problem. But no, she's more interested in hooking up with this guy. It is really, her mom is really quite attractive, honestly. But it is the claws out cougar thing that she's doing that I think is probably alarming a little bit. Yeah, she says, "Are you out of your mind? Oh, God." And that's the end of the scene. So we finally go to her bringing her mother to the airport. And her mother, like, is not supposed to leave until 5 hours from then, but seems very, very eager to get the fuck out. And she brings her to the airport, and on the way, her mom is just fucking laying it on, and Rebecca is just reaching her breaking point. And she says, "I know you don't believe me, Rebecca, but I want to understand you. I always have." And she says, "Fine, I will tell you why I moved here." And she's about to say it when Josh Chan is in the house, comes out over the loudspeakers. And I'll get back to what's going on with Josh, but her mother immediately recognizes his name and knows exactly what the fuck is going on and calls him a loser. And that seems to be more than anything what kind of pushes Rebecca over the edge. And she tells her mom, "I know that you want me to be this like married, high-powered workaholic, but you know what? You're not that either. I'm tired of this. I'm bending over backwards to please someone who can never be pleased." And says, "You are I think she says an unemployed divorcee, horny divorcee. I don't even care about the Garfinkel ring anymore. You know what? You can keep it. I'm a grown fucking woman, and I'm going to call you an Uber to get to the airport." Meanwhile, it keeps cutting during this, like, argument that they're having to the guys on the stage dancing, really sort of undercutting everything, y'all. It is really funny, honestly. She says, "My friend Paula is not British." That was her while we're airing things out. And she's not Jewish either. "I do work at that loser firm. I never wear pantyhose because they cause yeast infections. And because of you, I feel one coming on right now. And you know what? I know you're disappointed in me. I know I'm not who you want. And I know that you hate me because you married an Irish Catholic. And I have that in me. And that's what you hate." And her mother gives her this look and cannot believe that she just heard her say that she thinks her mother hates her. And that's the thing that really gets to her. And just is like, "I love you. I have always loved you. I love you too much. I wake up every morning sick with worry, wondering where you are, how you are. I am consumed by my love for you. And when you have a child, you will understand this." And Rebecca says, "If I have a kid, I don't care if they're happy." To which her mother says, "Happy? What's happy? That's a term for stupid people. I want you to survive. Our people are not about happy. We're about survival. And that is why I'm glad that you stood up to me, because that means when the Cossacks come, you can fight back. You can survive. I love you. Of course I love you. I am your mother." And her mother winds up giving her the ring because now she has like reached this landmark moment. And they are hugging and crying. And it's really, honestly, very sweet and very moving. Like, I really was very affected by this. The two of them are good. And the passion with which her mother says this is so real and, like, palpable. And I love when she says something about how I'm not coming home for Passover. And her mother's looking at her with, like, her tears still pouring down her face. And it's like, "Fine, I'll come home for Passover." And this is just a really sweet... I just love this so much. I really do. It's not easy, guys. What our parents want for us and we want, we need to have more talks like this. Because that's the thing. A lot of times they want something for us that's equally valid in its way. It's just they're going about it the wrong way, or not really seeing that what you're doing is getting the same result because it doesn't look familiar to them, you know? So, okay, talking about Josh, I'm going to do it really quick because his is very sort of superficial. But Josh really loves Christmas, and he is not used to working a job in which he has to work over the holidays. I have a friend who married somebody who's fairly young. She's in her early 20s, and she has never held a job that during which she needs to work over holidays or on her birthday, which is just mind-blowing to me, and is only just starting to realize that a lot of the assumptions she made about what it's like to work a grown-up job are very wrong. And that's sort of where Josh is at. And he wants to go to all these different things, but he's going to be working double shifts right up through Christmas. And this kid comes up to him and recognizes him because he was on some sort of like, he was in a photo and there is a trophy for some like dance crew that Josh was part of when he was in high school. The kid invites him and Josh initially refuses, but then he gets his mom to call in and say that he has the flu. Again, very, very young. He goes to this dance-off thing, and one of the kids, like, pretends to be, like, have a hurt leg so that Josh will go in for him. And Josh does, and he has a great time, and it's a lot of really fun memories, and he's, like, really enjoys himself. But it also hammers home for him that he's not a kid anymore, that his body is tired, that he needs to make money and you know, be responsible for himself. And he thinks to himself that he really needs to grow up. And this ends with a song between him and Rebecca about what it's like to do a California Christmas time. And this was really fun. I have not ever been in California for Christmas. I was there around Christmas, but wound up going home for it. So, and I was sort of in a like secluded area during it for this what do you call it? Retreat. But yeah, he gets like totally distracted by, I don't even remember what this is that he gets given. It looks like frozen yogurt or something, but it is a really cute, like the whole series of songs and the different people that wind up popping up and people who do henna tattoos or this guy who's Santa Claus, who's actually an unemployed stunt man. I thought this was really fun. There's no easy answer for our high rates of skin cancer. It's a nice big ensemble piece. It's not one person's song. And that was fun. I liked this ending. So yeah, I really liked this episode. I thought this was good. And thank you again to Emery for commissioning this. I am constantly surprised at how emotional this show can be and then jump to something really funny. So thank you all again very much for coming and hanging out with me. Thank you, Megan, for letting me know that I was right about Heather's name. And I will be seeing you all again soon with a new episode. So until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.